I'm going to teach a lesson on inferring. This is at 5th grade reading, and I have my pretend classroom all set up here to begin. And I do have somebody that is going to be answering along as a student, but she's not on camera. So here we go. So first off, class, we are going to learn about inferring. Inferring is using the text and the background knowledge that you know to put the pieces together and what you think. Now that we've been doing our fantasy unit, we are going to continue with that and do our characters that are within our fantasy book, okay? So I am going to start off by reading you The Paper Bag Princess, okay? And by reading this, I want you to think about things that you can infer about the character and then the princess in it, okay? So what are some things on this chart, and I know I put one in front of you as well, that you can do while we're thinking about this read aloud? Is there anything that you can think of?
No, not really.
Okay, what about thinking about the character's actions? Okay, you can think about the character's actions as you're going through this. Thinking about how the character handles conflict. Conflict such as what's going on that is making your character conflicted about something. Maybe it's internal or external. Okay, we had those lessons as well. You can think about how the character feels. Is the character feeling sad? Is the character feeling angry? Okay, and think about how the character handles change. Sometimes when people they don't like change, they'll show one way or the other. And we can infer and understand like what we think about it and what's going on. And we can do thinking about what we already know. What we know in the past or what happened in the beginning of the book versus how is the character evolving and changing with that. Okay? So I'm going to start off by reading The Paper Bag Princess. And of course, this is also fantasy. It's a short story, but we are going to start it. And as we go along, maybe we can have some helpful hints and kind of pick out what is it that we can infer as we go through the book. Okay? Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had expensive princess clothes. She was going to marry a prince named Ronald. Unfortunately, a dragon smashed her castle, burned all her clothes with his fiery breath, and carried off Prince Ronald. Well, there goes the prince. So here she thought she was going to marry a prince, but there he goes. Elizabeth decided to change the dragon and get Ronald back. She looked everywhere for something to wear, but the only thing she could find was not burnt was a paper bag. So she put on the paper bag and followed the dragon. She was easy to follow because he left a trail of burnt forest and horses' bones. Ooh.
Okay.
Finally, Elizabeth came to the cave with a large door that had a huge knocker on it. She took hold of the knocker and banged on the door. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Well, a princess. I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today. I am a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow." He slammed the door so fast that Elizabeth almost got her nose caught. Elizabeth grabbed the knocker and banged on the door again. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Go away! I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today. I am a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow." "Wait," shouted Elizabeth. "Is it true that you are the smartest and fiercest dragon in the whole world?" "Yes," said the dragon. "Is it true," said Elizabeth, that you can burn up 10 forests at a fiery breath. Sorry. Oh, yes, said the dragon, and he took a huge deep breath and breathed out so much fire that he burnt up 50 forests. Fantastic, said Elizabeth. And the dragon took another huge breath and breathed out so much fire that he burnt up 100 forests. Magnificent, said Elizabeth. And the dragon took another huge breath. But this time nothing came out. The dragon didn't even have enough fire left to cook a meatball. Elizabeth said, Dragon, is it true that you can fly around the world in just 10 seconds? Why, yes, said the dragon, and jumped up and flew all the way around the world in just 10 seconds. He was very tired when he got back, but Elizabeth shouted, Fantastic! Do it again! Is there anything we can infer about Elizabeth at this point?
That she's pretty smart and just trying to get him all worn out.
Yeah, right? So we can infer that she's a pretty smart cookie, right? Like she's pretty smart, she's like figuring this out. Okay, good. So the dragon jumped up and flew around the whole world in just 20 seconds. Then he got back. He was so tired to talk, and he laid down and went straight to sleep. Elizabeth whispered very softly, Hey, dragon. The dragon didn't move at all. He lifted up the dragon's ear and put her head right inside. She shouted as loud as she could, Hey, dragon. The dragon was so tired that he didn't even move. Elizabeth walked right over the dragon and opened the door to the cave. There was Prince Ronald. He looked at her and said, Elizabeth, you are a mess. You smell like ashes, your hair is all tangled, and you are wearing a dirty old paper bag. Come back when you are dressed like a real princess. Oh my. What can we infer about Ronald?
He's a little snotty.
He's kind of a snot, yeah? And what did he just do for her? Or what did she just do for him?
She just wore out the dragon so that she could save him.
Exactly. And now he's complaining that she doesn't look like a princess. Can we infer what she might be doing? Or can we predict? We've learned about prediction. Can we maybe predict what she might do?
She's gonna leave him.
You think so? Okay, let's find out. Ronald and Elizabeth, your clothes are really pretty, and your hair is very neat. You look like a real princess. Prince, but you're a bum. They didn't get married after all. Well, that was a pretty abrupt ending, right? So she basically said, you're a bum. I don't need you. And I can do better, right? Right. Okay, so the paper bag princess. So even though we think of a princess as somebody who is royalty and a queen or dresses like a queen and is super dressy and stuff like that. She was still a princess even though she was wearing a paper bag, right? Okay. And we could infer, what about the dragon? Can we infer anything about the dragon?
The dragon was a little, how do I say this? Stupid.
Okay. He was able to be tricked. Right? Right. Exactly. So, are there any examples in your own book club books that come to mind when inferring about a character? I know right now, since we're in the fantasy unit, I know right now that you were reading The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
So what can we infer about Katniss in the beginning of?
That she was kind of like the home, like she got all the food and got all the money for her family after her dad passed away.
So can we, in the beginning, could we infer that she loved her, like we could know that she loved her family very much? Yeah. Anything else about that as you read, because I know that you're in the third book right now. So as her character developed, is there anything that she,
Well, she began to realize that she's not perfect, and she's not, like, she began to realize once, in the third book, PETA, like, had a bunch of bad memories and stuff, and he got a bug bite that made him think bad things about all of his memories, and he began to see her for who she really is, and that person is, she picks to be with the people who she thinks she cannot survive without. She doesn't pick them.
Yep.
Like with her family, she picks them because she loves them. But if it comes to like boys, she'll pick them if she can't live without them. She doesn't pick them if she loves them or not.
Good, good. So what I want you to do now that you've thought about that, and now that we've gone over this chart, okay? I want you could even make a chart like this in your book. I infer by, and then maybe thinking about your own experiences, maybe some way that you can relate to Katniss in your book, and write that in your notebook, using clues from the text. What were some of the clues that as you went through there? Thinking about what you already know. So now that you're in the third book, what can you figure out was going to happen because of what you already know? Okay? And then maybe thinking about how the character handles conflict. There's a ton of conflict in the Hunger Games, right? So how does Katniss handle that conflict? And then thinking about the character's actions. So those two can kind of go together. And thinking about what the character says. Is what she says different from how she acts? Okay? All right. So that's your assignment. Go ahead and you can, after you've written a few things, maybe you can talk with your book club book.
Yeah.
Or